Never, ever will we ever figure it out.
Never a dull moment.
Oh, Christine, next week's Halloween.
Ah, that's cute.
Thank you. That was on the fly if you couldn't tell.
Why did I never realize that my name rhymes with Halloween?
I also had to tell you your baby's name can be spelled out of Halloween letters, so you know.
You did. I mean, you also told me that her name's a little too close for comfort to the word lemon.
And so thus demon.
Oh wait, that's true. I think I just don't see what I don't want to see. You know what I mean?
That's a fun game to live through life.
Yeah, it is actually. You should try it sometime.
Well, happy pre-Halloween. Are you getting in the mindset? Are you ready to eat a lot of candy? Are you going to dress up?
I literally, before we recorded, was like, I have to go get my candy. And I went and got a giant bag of candy. And by the way, folks, as we record, this is October 3rd. So the answer is yes. I'm already on my candy game. Now that Leona's birthday's over, I am in Halloween prep mode. How are you doing over there across the nation?
Oh, just checking, just keeping the West Coast safe for you, Christine. That's how I am.
Thank you so much for doing that for me.
And as of October 3rd, my home is going to be decorated in the next 24 hours. And I'm going to be decorating the front door. Nobody else in our entire complex decorates the front door, you know?
Really?
I know. And
if I had an apartment, like that's what I would do, like make the front door all fun, you know?
My mom always said that when she lived in an apartment building growing up, that was the best time to go trick-or-treating because you could just knock on all the doors down the hall and they'd all open the doors at the same time.
The building.
And you would run down the hall and grab everyone's candy.
That's such a dream.
It's
so like nice. Eloise, you know?
It's exactly like that, except she was in the projects. But
Is
you know,
your mom Eloise? Oh.
But I mean, she felt like Eloise when there was 6 people handing candy out all at the same time.
Yes.
So, yes, everything will be decorated. I don't have candy yet, but I will get there. And I don't have anything I'm dressing up as, but you know, I'm looking at getting ready for all the events, all the jump scares I'm going to. So.
Oh, I hate that. But everything else sounds like fun.
Well, anyway, speaking of Halloween, and before we get into anything, I want to bring up last week because I'm feeling very, I don't know what the right word is. I feel very...
Oh, well, we've already talked to our therapist. Well, I've talked to Em and Em has talked to their therapist. So yeah, I've just talked to a therapist through Em somehow.
Well, it just felt weird, and weird isn't even the right word. It's just kind of, I definitely feel bad, and I feel
I'll tell you what I feel. I feel slightly embarrassed. I feel
embarrassed.
I feel kind of like I'm kicking myself a little bit, and I feel like what's the other word? We were identifying our feelings a little bit. By the way, when this comes out, it wasn't last week because it came out on the episode we're talking about. But it came out, let's see, 3 weeks ago when this comes out.
Oh God, a while ago, yeah.
Yeah.
But for us, it was like yesterday. So yeah. But I still feel kind of just weird about it. So we had been told a few times that this is, by the way, in reference to us using or not using the word spooky. And we had been told behind the scenes quite a few times that, you know, people had been reaching out saying that that word actually was offensive and we needed to,
nix
maybe
it from the vocabulary.
Nix it. And so that's why when we, after we heard that enough times on the next episode we recorded, we brought that up and we came in too hot. And I think we both, as you probably know after so many episodes, we spiral. And so we had been told this information, right before we recorded. And so I think it was on the front of both of our minds to just address it. And we should have definitely done more research beforehand instead of just...
That's what I'm embarrassed about a little bit. I'm like, we should have known better by now that we don't just take things at face value without more thought and research. And I feel that we kind of, like you said, jumped too hot into the situation and
I think
felt
we were
like
just
almost I think some people felt like defensive a little bit because we just kind of were like, this
we're
is
not
the
saying
way
that
it
word
is
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just felt, and like, I mean, I recognize that. And, people have been debating online, and most people are being very, kind and trying to defend us. And we do really appreciate that. But it's caused a little bit of
A
chaos
kerfuffle.
and controversy, yes, amongst our listeners. And we apologize for that. That was not the intention.
Especially during Halloween season, I feel like it was like a particularly touchy subject because this is the time when everyone's saying that word. But I think I don't know, we thought we were doing the right thing, because if you've been listening long enough, you know that we're always trying to be on the right side of history, and we have a platform and we want to, address things and help educate others. But at the same time, we have a platform and we should have known what we were talking about before we jumped right into it. And so we were trying to do the right thing. And, sometimes the right thing is also to say when you were wrong.
Maybe. Yeah. To talk about it afterward and be like, hey, and like, we know that it'll probably die down pretty soon, like the conversation online, but we just wanted to we didn't want to just go back and delete that part of the episode and then pretend like it never happened, like revisionist history. We felt like that was just kind of insincere. And so we thought we'd just say something now and just say, we talked to several people who have said a lot of people who chimed in were people of color. And we were like, oh, thank God. Like, some people are putting their own personal, spin on it, letting us know what their experience is. And that is something we should have done before we talked about it on this show.
We just heard enough times that it was offensive, and we went, okay, well, we're not going to say it anymore, which usually works.
Usually that works pretty damn well. Yeah.
But then all of a sudden there were people saying oh, this information only came from one article, and we hadn't even done any research. We were totally going off of people just reaching out and saying,
but that's the one perspective I read. I read that one article. I didn't really dive into it, and that is my fault. And again, I'm quite embarrassed about that. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, all that to say, I don't know, what's the thesis statement, Em?
It sounds like 95% of people are saying that it's an okay word to say, and other than that one article that I guess someone else had read and relayed to us. And it sounds like it's an okay word to say, but I also, it's such a touchy subject now because we've
created a big,
we've created a monster.
Teams almost. And it's really not even that bad. It's, it's just a few people who are kind of debating, which is fair and understandable.
And I'm happy that there's a discourse about it,
Absolutely.
that if there's anything we want out of this podcast, it's that we want to, educate other people like us to even just think about these kinds of things. So, I'm grateful that it seems like most people are having civil discourse on this.
Yes, definitely.
But now I'm kind of at a loss because I feel like, oh, it sounds like it's an okay thing to say, but now I'm going to be paranoid every time I say it. So maybe just, time will heal that. But
I think we just need to wait to hear, I don't know, wait. Yeah. Like you said, give it some time. Wait for other people's perspectives before we, totally lean one direction or another.
Yeah.
And just apologize for, creating a little bit of kerfuffle, which was not the intention of our statement. It really was not. But
no, we were just trying to do the right thing, and it backfired. So whoopsies. Okay, I just wanted to address that before Halloween season was over, and then all of a sudden we if we're ever going to talk about it, it should be during Halloween season, right?
I agree. So, and I'm like, what if we say spooky sometime, and then people are like, really? Now you're just totally 180ing on your own thing? And so, yeah, we wanted to be fully transparent and say, whoops, we clearly hear you guys.
we came in too hot. We came in way too hot,
and we apologize, and we will use this as a learning lesson,
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Other than that, is there a reason why you drink, Christy?
Well, that's pretty much a big one. I did cry yesterday. It did break through the Zoloft. I wasn't upset with the listeners or anything. I was just embarrassed, really. And I think, handle that well, like the kind of shame of that. So
Well,
I did a
my
little
therapist,
reflection. Yeah.
I was telling Christine, my therapist called it a critique of our character because
Yeah, is what how we perceived it, at least. Yeah.
yeah, is that we felt like yeah,
Like we felt like we were being called, like accused of being performative and stuff, which, you know, is a fair thing to call people out for. But
we
you
really
know,
were trying to be so genuine.
we really
So,
were.
whoops.
Yeah, we really were. But
But I also,
you know,
it was like a critique on our, a self critique on our character too, of
yeah.
just like, oh, like, what is that? Like, what do I need to work on? So anyway, it was a big emotional day for both of us yesterday. But
Yeah.
anyway, I had a different reason why I drank. Oh, I found an old picture of I'm going through my photo frames, my
Oh.
whole wall. And I found this old picture of like a family member. It looks like it's the first picture to ever exist. It's from like the 1840s or something.
What?
It's the oldest and they're apparently related to me. And I was like, what if I just find all of these like old archived family pictures and put them in the picture frames on my wall? And just make it look like I bought all these from like Spirit Halloween, where it's like those pictures where you walk by
funny.
and they become it looks like they turn into a zombie or something if you walk too far past the picture.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, I drink this week because I'm now going through all of Ancestry. I didn't have enough pictures, so now I have to like scour Ancestry to find
Shut up.
my oldest relative on each side of the family, and I'm going to print them out and put them on our walls and make them permanent photos until Allison wants to change it. But
Permanent fixtures of your home. I mean,
exactly.
That's
So
the
people be
recipe
like-
for a haunting, but okay, you do you, I guess.
I know. I'm like, will I feel like they're staring at me all the time? I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I will if they're behind you while we record.
We'll find out. So actually, that would be a great backdrop, wouldn't it?
It's actually kind of an ideal backdrop because it's like meaningful, but also a little scary.
Yeah. We'll
kinda
shop
like
it. We'll
it.
shop it. Anyway,
Well-
that's why I drink. I'm currently I'm doing a deep dive of any photographic evidence that, you know, people in my bloodline existed all those years ago. So that's why I drink.
I love it. Well, I drink because Leona's birthday party was a roaring success.
How
She
was
gets-
it? Was it?
It was so fun. It really went so great. I actually took photos this year. Last year we like barely got any pictures. This year I like tasked everybody with taking photos. I even gave my phone to someone else and was like, just take photos for me.
Oh,
So I'll post those online. It was just really sweet and fun, and it was like 70 people. It was crazy.
whoa! Who did
yeah,
you
it was-
invite? What the hell?
It's a lot of people came. A lot of our family, in-laws, kids from Leona's toddler program, you know, friends in the area. It was
How's the
banger.
cleanup situation from that?
well, my mother-in-law was in town and I woke up the next day and my house was cleaner than it was before the party.
Oh my
so I was
God.
like, listen, I feel extremely lucky. And it was really great. And now the house is kind of quiet. I've taken 3 naps in the last 2 days because I'm
Good for you.
so freaking exhausted.
The amount of planning that goes into a party, no one ever appreciates it.
It's wild.
daunting.
They came over and were like, all of this is for the party. And I was like, yeah. And they were like, this isn't like doubles. You didn't accidentally order doubles of something. And I was like, no, all of these boxes need to be opened and used. It was many days of prep work, which I know was
I'm
not
sure.
necessary. And I always tell myself like, oh, I'll do really low key this year. Like, who do I think I'm kidding? You know?
Well, also like because my thought too, I would turn into you. By the way, let's be clear. But my
yeah.
brain without a baby is like even my own mom. She's like, you don't remember when I did this, this, and this for you? And I was like, I was fucking 2. No, I
yeah,
don't
that
remember.
wasn't for me. That was for the grown-ups.
Yeah. So in my mind, I'm like, I won't really do anything like mind blowing until my child can even remember it. But I
Yeah.
would still find a way to go over the
But
top.
it's
so-
fun because it's sort of like, oh, now you have kind of an excuse to invite everyone over and
Exactly.
like get great. It's like all the photos, and we did like a little guest book where people wrote in her copy of Hungry Caterpillar little messages, like a little guest book for the party, and people wrote her little notes for the future. And so
Very
every year we're
cute.
gonna have like a different guest book, just little fun stuff like that. And I don't know, it was obviously I know it was more fun for me. than anyone.
She was probably just like, what is going on here?
She was pardon the pun, she was a social butterfly. Like, she was running around and just like high-fiving everyone. She went through this 1 hour through the party. She would just wander around and pat everyone on the leg. Like, just even people she's never met. Just pat them twice on the leg. Keep
That's
walking.
so sweet.
Just say hi to everyone. Do the rounds.
What's it like to have a toddler now? She's not a baby anymore.
She's so big. She's a little chatterbox. I can't wait for you to see her again, Em, because my mother-in-law saw her in August in Germany, and then she came this time, and she's like, holy crap, like, she's speaking in full sentences, she's singing, she's making jokes. Like, I feel like every week there's new developments. So
making jokes? Like,
she thinks they're funny, but
okay, well,
like, she makes herself laugh. So, I mean, which makes everyone else laugh. But yeah, I feel like you two will have a good time whenever you reconnect again.
It's about to the era is about to begin. Yeah, because I don't do well with babies because I can't explain to them how funny I am.
Right. Because you have to explain to adults how funny you are. Yeah.
Well, like, they can't, like, it's not clicking, it's not clicking the right way. But once, like, she understands, like, oh no, I'm the director of Funville. Like, then all of a sudden she's gonna be like, I fucking like you. Like, originally,
be like, that's the fun crowd.
She's gonna be like,
the one I want to be part of.
She's gonna be like, you were just holding me, like, boring. But like, once I'm like, hey, let's do this, this, and this, and all these things your mom won't let you do, all of a sudden she's gonna be like, oh, that fucking guy. Yeah, let's be friends,
Oh, Funkle M is here to play.
Funkle M waited 2 years, but Funkle M's about to get crazy, so.
M's about to throw down.
Okay, so, anyway, looking forward to that. My story for you this week, Christine, because I wanted to get into the Halloween spirit. I thought you would appreciate this. This is the lore of the black cat. So cat girlies to the front, cat girlies to the front.
I'm here.
So here is a brief history, a 101.
Here comes Eva. I'm screaming. Eva and I are in the front row.
As someone who has a black cat, both of you, I feel like you'll really appreciate this episode.
Shadow and Moonshine. Shout out.
Two of the best names. I know Shadow is like probably the most like obvious name for a black cat, but it's one of those. It's a classic. Like, it's so good.
I had a black cat named Shadow also growing up. It's a great name for a cat.
It's a great name. I had a black cat growing up. He did not have a cool name, but I didn't get to name him. To be clear.
What's his name?
So, his name was Rocky. Blech. But like,
that's kind of cute.
I wanted a Shadow. I wanted a Moonshine. Well, I not a Moonshine, but something cool. I feel like Rocky was just kind of like low grade. Like, it's a good name, but
like
it's not
Buddy
original
or something.
Yeah,
which is also like a good name. Don't be offended, everyone. I'm just saying, like, your classic, like Rufus, Buddy.
Yeah, it's like there wasn't too much originality to it. I feel like someone just kind of threw that name out and it just stuck. So I tried for a while to shop Rocket. No one wanted that. But Rocky, I wanted something dope, but whatever.
Rocky Raccoon.
So anyway, to all my cat girlies, here we are. This is the black cat. Now, black cats are often known as, they're associated with Halloween superstitions. They're often seen as witches' familiars. And in modern Western superstitions, they're associated with trickery and evil magic and bad luck. Before this, we're going to do a deep dive into the history of the cat. And before this, many cultures for thousands of years linked cats with magic, gods, and the afterlife. So this goes forever back. Historically, cats started out in good favor with humans, and this is like 10,000 years ago. It's thought that we began to live amongst cats, or cats began to live amongst us.
10,000. Jeez.
I can't even, my brain doesn't work that way. But it's said that long ago we began to live alongside each other. Fun fact, the very first evidence of a pet cat, 9,500 years ago.
Wow. A pet cat?
Pet cat.
Aww.
Because there's a 9,500-year-old burial site in Cyprus, and a cat is buried next to a human. They found the remains of both. And this, by the way, predates Egyptian cats by around 4,000 years.
That had to be, that guy was probably like that guy in the neighborhood where everyone was like, this guy with his like friggin' cat that he's befriended. Like, it must have been such a weird concept. Like,
it must have been weird.
He had the first pet cat, you know?
But he loved that cat. He was the Eva of 10,000 years ago.
Yeah, he was. He's like, I give zero fucks what you guys think about me. He's my friend.
So they were buried together. And I said that this was in Cyprus, but Cyprus wasn't an area where cats were native to the area. So it's theorized even further that not only did these two become buddies, but humans must have brought cats with them to travel there.
Oh, that's cute.
So they, moved around together.
Precious.
This shows that humans were associating with cats thousands of years earlier than scholars originally thought, because they originally thought maybe in Egypt is when the relationship really got big.
That's kind of what I thought.
Well, it's thought that we began living alongside cats in the Fertile Crescent, which, depending on the scholar, that could be modern day Iraq, Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Palestine, or Egypt. So everyone's got a different opinion on where that area is. But they think that cats and humans started hanging out in this area because at this time in this area, that was where housing started attracting a lot of rodents because they would keep crops and grain storage near the permanent homes.
Oh, right.
And so since these homes were like the first to have food nearby all the time, this was the first area where rodents were just everywhere. And
that does make sense.
These settlements were great hunting grounds for cats who were hunting rodents or eating our trash to survive. And eventually the cats just kind of stuck around and we saw them as free pest control. So we kept them around and didn't have a problem with it. And I guess over time we just started bonding with them and they became our friends. So
yay.
Also, fun fact, in ancient Rome, soldiers would keep cats in their forts because rats were known to chew on armor and equipment. So cats were important during war.
Listen, look at them. They know their worth.
They have known for 10,000 years.
Yeah, they're like, duh.
No wonder they're so snooty. They're just like, I fucking know. My father and his father before him, we were helping in ancient Roman wars, okay?
I'm going to get Moonshine's ancestors' old photos from Ancestry and hang them up behind me while you do your ancestry wall. I'm going to have Moon's ancestry wall behind me.
I am telling you, if like when men are always thinking about the Roman Empire, I hope they're including the thought of cats saving the day, you know?
If that were like the angle, I would probably also think of the Roman Empire every week, you know?
Right. All of a sudden it makes sense. I'm like,
it does. I can get behind.
Yeah. So cats might have had an ancient spiritual significance in cultures that are now lost to time, but later in Egypt, they definitely had a huge spiritual significance. Egyptians believed that cats were of this world and other worlds. They could cross into both, and that they were divine protectors of the underworld, and so they were guides for the dead, and they were peace bringers.
Aww.
They also thought that cats represented fertility and power and justice, and they were seen as protectors and hunters. They were seen as both because not only could they control the rat population, but the snake population. So they were hunters for the rats, but they were protecting us the entire time because they could also take down snakes that would kill us.
Damn.
So they had immediately they were known as like having a duality to them of like being protective, but also dangerous.
Ooh.
Cats have also been associated with a lot of deities, but especially the Egyptian goddess Bastet or Bast, who was it looked like a female figure with the head of a lion. And then over time, it actually evolved into the head of a domestic cat. So, I wonder if it was like, because she's so fierce like a lion, but then people started making friends with cats that it just kind of the depiction of her.
I wanted to look a little more like my cat, Bob. So I'm going to alter it.
The image changed to Bob. So,
aww.
But this goddess, she was the goddess of protection and good health and pleasure. And Egyptians also often depicted cats as dedicated to serving humanity. So they, again, had a dual nature where they were deadly but protective.
Wow.
In Japanese folklore, cats were also dual-natured animals because they could walk between worlds, but they were less serving to humanity, so they weren't really there for you. We were just lucky to be in their presence.
Yeah, well, that seems like we've come back around to that angle.
I feel like, especially Juniper is like, can confirm.
Correct. Juniper's like, now you're onto something.
They were known to cause either... because they were seen as less serving to humans and they had more of a free will, they were seen as huge problems because we couldn't predict what they were doing. And
you
they
can't
could
like train them like a dog.
Exactly.
I mean, you can, but not quite as easily.
Well, so because of that, they were mischievous and they could either bring you great fortune or really bad fortune.
Uh-oh.
So that might be the beginning of where we see us not totally knowing what cats are all about every now and then, that they've got a little more independence to them. In Norse history, cats were, again, magical creatures who would bring good luck, but only if owners treated them well. So now they've got conditions.
Now that I could get on board with, though. Like, yeah, you should treat them well.
Yeah, I'm totally down for. But all of a sudden it's like, oh, now we've got boundaries. Okay.
Now we've got demands. Okay.
It demands, exactly. So... cats were used in Norse rituals. In one of the stories, to bind one of Loki's children, one of the ingredients was the sound of a cat's footfall.
Whoa.
Which, kind of ironic, because I feel like you can never hear a cat's footfall. But...
have you heard Junie walk down the stairs?
Oh,
we
yeah,
almost
never
called
mind.
the police once. We thought it was a man, like a man was in the house, and it was literally Juniper. He's so effing loud, like the house shakes when he walks down the stairs.
I'm sure there's a story to that or a reason to that mythologically of like, oh, he's one of the ones that we would have needed for Loki's children, you know?
Oh, maybe. He's like, I'm just stomping around in case anyone needs to hear my footfalls, okay?
Well, also in Norse mythology, there was Freya, who was a goddess who rode a chariot pulled by two cats.
Aww.
And she was the goddess of love, so she was linked with fertility and sexuality and femininity, which is some of the things that cats became associated with, was especially like the slinkiness, you know?
Sure.
In Norse tradition, there are also early stories of black cats being associated with fearsome magic and power. There's one story of a gigantic black cat that could breathe fire and killed 20 men in just a few minutes. So,
oh no, that's called a dragon, but whatever.
They're actually descendants, kind of like how chickens are descendants of dinosaurs.
Makes
cats are descendants of dragons.
Makes perfect sense. Thank you.
There's also an Icelandic story of a man who owned 20 black cats because, he owned 20 black cats and he used sorcery to make them powerful. So now all cats are powerful.
Ooh.
The cats terrorized his neighborhood and they ended up being called Hell cats. But Hel was for the daughter of Loki, who is the goddess of the underworld. So this brings us back to the original theories that
that's fun.
go in between both worlds.
Okay.
So this is kind of the early beginnings of black cats specifically being associated with the underworld and thus big scary monsters and thus the unknown.
Yeah.
Other associations with like cats being linked to sorcery or cats being linked to the dead, or even like because they were associated in some way to femininity and thus, like I said, the slinkiness.
Yeah.
These kind of associations really took hold after Christianity came into Europe or took hold in Europe. So now all of a sudden cats are really all about witchcraft and the dead and sexuality. So you can see how quickly we jump into.
Now sexuality is like a bad thing because it represents like sinning, or it's like the opposite of purity and all that. Yeah.
Well, especially because it was linked to sexuality and femininity, and God forbid a woman be sexual.
God forbid.
Right?
Yeah, that's a wrong kind of sexuality.
There's no such thing. It doesn't exist.
That's true. It's all made up.
So, for one thing, Christian missionaries were especially critical of Freya because she was a goddess expressing sexual power. And she was associated with cats. And so now not only her, but cats are threats to Christian beliefs.
Yeah.
So,
amen. So stupid.
Cats were also, because they were associated with sorcery, they were now also associated with Hecate, who I've talked about, and she was the Greek goddess of magic, sorcery, witchcraft. So this further links cats to not just sexuality and things that heavy Christian beliefs were against, but now if the cat is also linked to witchcraft, it's linking them to paganism, true evil.
Yeah.
Throughout the medieval era, opinions on cats went back and forth because they were still seen as practical livestock, especially if you lived in a city and there were more rodents. So having cats around just to keep rodents at bay, they also, cats were still seen as good because they were technically protecting our food. They were keeping homes clean. And during the medieval era, they were preventing disease. So
okay, yeah, fair point.
So in some ways, it's like, yeah, we've got all these things going for us where we're against cats, but also they're a really useful tool. And that brings them back in good standing. But cats being essentially nocturnal and more active at night made them still seem mysterious and threatening and looming. So even though they were useful, they were still linked to creatures of the old gods and forgotten magic and threatening Christianity, and they're still a little creepy because they move around at night. What are you up to?
And they don't do what you say, and their tails flick around and they stare at you and you feel like they're reading your soul, just little things like that.
Also, I'm sure like even the original root of like all the way back to Japanese folklore of like cats are independent. I feel like that wasn't a big thing that Christianity was looking for either. It's like, you have to like be obedient and all this stuff, and cats are like, I'm doing whatever the fuck I want.
Cats are like, yeah, sure, whatever, and then they just like knock your water glass over and they're like, what are you gonna do about it? It's like, oh my god, okay, you are a little scary.
They really will do anything. One of Deirdre's cats, last time I slept over, I woke up to it licking my eyelid, like with its sandpaper tongue. Oh my god, it felt demonic. It felt really awful.
Yeah, certainly that nothing good was happening there. No.
Oof, woof. That felt like that alone. I was like, "Be gone, demon!" Be
gone, demon. You did convert to Christianity that day, which makes a lot of sense now.
Anytime I'm around that cat, I just start saying Hail Marys. It's very interesting.
Protect me.
So these are now, although useful, they are seen as eerie creatures. We don't know everything about them. They're linked to old gods, and to tip the scales even further. Now we have one of the first rises of Satanist panics and witch trials, and cats, especially black cats, are assigned to the devil because in medieval times, that was the beginning of this. There was one writer who even claimed that the devil would take form of a black cat to seek out followers. So if you saw a black cat, the devil was coming after you.
Oh boy.
And when talking about, this is the same medieval writer, he said, this is a quote about satanic followers hanging out with black cats and the devil. This is a quote. The devil descends as a black cat before his devotees. Worshippers put out the light and draw near, and they feel after him, and when they have found him, they kiss him under the tail.
Ew!
Right on his little...
Ew! First of all, the first part of that was all correct, that the devil does descend as a black cat and we all worship him. But the rest of it, like, that's just gross, guys.
Then you feel around for him in the dark and you... First of all, can you imagine feeling around for a black cat in the pitch black and then grabbing a hold of its tail and like getting anywhere near that cat? No, absolutely not.
And as if the cat would ever be like, okay with that. Come on.
Right. So anyway, that one sentence was a lot, even for 2023. So I imagine in medieval era, it really just threw people into a tizzy.
Outrageous, yeah.
So now people are linking black cats to not just Satan, but, satanic followers, satanic rituals, and also just general uncleanliness and degrading humiliation. Because
horrible.
You're kissing a cat on his little spot.
That's just bullying.
So now black cats equal devil. And Pope Gregory the Ninth actually heard these stories and declared himself that black cats were in cahoots with the devil. Okay. So Pope Gregory was a little trigger happy with that.
Yeah.
So that being said, though, even though the Pope was like, black cats are bad, and cats in general, he said, were bad. But nuns in monasteries actually ignored the Pope a lot. and kept cats in their churches and in their homes because they were still useful animals. So I feel like it's I don't know a good example of this, but it feels like the cats are like, yeah, we've got a bad rep, but like we still have a skill everybody needs.
We have something to offer. Yeah, it's like
we
you're.
we still keep
what's
getting
the word
invited
for
to the
that?
party.
Yeah, it's like that. I know exactly what you're trying to say. Like
it's like that
they
guy at the
have-
office that everyone fucking hates, but he's the only one who knows Excel. You know, it's like
Okay, that is such a good way to put it. It's like, man, we really don't want to be around this guy. He's kind of a douchebag, but like, how else are we going to get these spreadsheets done?
exactly. So that's how these cats are just prevailing after era after era after era. It's like people.
Understood.
It's like that Miley Cyrus quote when she's like, "These motherfuckers are trying to kill me, but I'm back. I'm back." And so they
It's just
hate
like that.
black cats. Every single one of them hate fucking black cats, but they're still hanging out in your
But
church.
they need
Pope.
them. They need them.
Exactly. So there are rumors that the Pope even launched an inquisition into cats, like against
For God's
cats.
sake.
And he led Catholic followers to start killing cats en masse throughout Europe.
No, that's not cool, man. That's really not cool.
Lucky for us, the truth is kind of unknown on this. It's like speculative that happened.
Good.
But in the 1200s, the leader of the Catholic Church did take an anti-cat stance, whether or not he also ordered people to kill them. So no matter what, cats were hated. This was a rough time to be a cat.
Jeez.
After this, cats started showing up more and more as symbols of blasphemy, symbols of sacrilege. And it got to where a bunch of Christian sects, if they were trying to separate from the Catholic Church, they were accused of worshiping cats, not worshiping the devil or pagan idols, but worshiping cats. So if they're like, I don't want to be Catholic anymore. Oh, you're a cat worshiper.
Loser.
Meow. Meow.
Meow. Yeah, you know they were taunted. It's so evil.
So, more rumors led to the belief that devil worshippers allowed cats to even participate in their rituals with humans. So now cats are becoming like, I guess, this like anthropomorphic, like they know how to like perform rituals with human beings, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like it's like they've, even though they were trying to vilify cats, they've now turned them into like these larger than life, like characters that have like all this agency and control. And it's like, I think you're kind of doing the opposite of what you were originally intending to do. You've made them a lot more powerful in people's eyes.
Yeah, you've accidentally shot them to stardom, I'm afraid.
Right? Like, it's kind of weird. I'm like, what were you thinking was going to happen? Whatever.
Well, so it was still a way to scare a lot of people in the Catholic Church, because since cats were able to participate in rituals, they were seen as equals, where this was an insult to the Christian belief that humans are above all animals.
Okay, I see.
So it's like, oh, if they can do these things, they must be unnatural.
Right. Okay.
So soon cats start popping up in accusations against witches all over Europe.
Aha.
And there was actually just one example of this. In 1324, there's a woman named Alice, and she was accused by her own stepkids who were hungry for her money. They accused her of witchcraft. They said that she was using magic to seduce and kill her husbands, including their own father.
Okay.
And one accusation against her was that the only way she became a witch was that she was having sex with a demon to gain power. And the demon appeared as a black cat, and she would even have sex with the demon in the form of a cat.
On. Okay. So now they're turning into bestiality shit. Great.
Exactly. And which is another like gross misconception of like the occult or you know, Satanists is like, oh, well, they're just having sex with animals or something.
Horrible.
So this is one of the first times we see an accusation like that. So it was incredibly outrageous then, but unfortunately, as more witch trials happened, this became a more common accusation.
Right.
Luckily, Alice fled town before she was tried, but this accusation actually helped black cats, in a bad way, have solid footing and legal proceedings and being deemed as actually evil. That courts were taking this seriously.
The crazy part to think about too is like, they have, like, if you really think about it, they have no idea what the fuck is going on. Like
Isn't
they
that
have
crazy?
no idea. Like we're saying, like back then they were all saying, "Oh, they have all these nefarious plans," and they're literally in their head are just like meow, 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 meow. Like they have
Like,
literally no idea what's going
I
on,
want
which is
chicken.
great.
I want
Yeah,
liver.
literally. Meow mix, please deliver. And they're like, "Oh, they are the spawn of the devil." It's just so weird. Like they had no fucking clue what was happening.
No, they just had little fuzzy tummies and paws, and they were just maybe if they ever saw a fish in their
They were
life,
like,
it'd be a
"Ooh,
good
a
day.
mouse." Yeah.
Yeah.
These poor cats.
But like also like yeah, it's just it's wild that they could have no concept of what evil
No
even
concept.
is, and that they are perceived globally
They're
as
part
this,
of
apparently.
a court trial. They're like, what's a
That's
court
like
trial?
explaining taxes to an ant. It's like
Yes, it's like you're part of my tax deduction. It's like, what are you talking
religion and witchcraft and court trials, and you're all at the forefront of this.
It's just so absurd to think about. It's absurd.
Oh, these poor things. And so I wonder if that was also part of like the power dynamic, right? Of like, oh well, we can keep blaming these things that
True,
we don't
like,
have to.
What are
feel
they going
bad
to do?
for.
Yeah, they can't argue back.
Well, over time, witchcraft and sorcery evolved into the public legal issue it became, and courts started interrogating accused witches of conspiring with cats. And so this evolved again, where cats weren't direct incarnations of Satan, but they were witches' familiars, and that to conspire with black cats, you were conspiring with a middleman to Satan.
Okay.
Which is interesting because I feel like the flip side, like they'd start as a middleman and evolve into the devil himself.
You think so?
Whatever. Things are surprising.
Listen, whatever. None of this
so-
makes much sense, so I don't know why I'm trying to find logic here.
So soon black cats were said to help witches in all sorts of ways now that they were seen as their familiars. They were known as maybe not performing witchcraft themselves, but being some sort of helpmeet for witchcraft. So they were running witches' errands, like getting ingredients for spells or taking messages to the devil or bewitching your enemies. And witches at one point were even said to ride cats like brooms, which like is the most bizarre thing to me. Like I can't imagine sitting on a cat and the cat taking off at flight.
Like Geo's probably 4 times heavier than all my cats. I could never even sit on Geo and get any, like he would collapse
all of his arms would splat out in different directions.
He would just be a splat on the ground. So I don't understand what type of logic that is, but whatever.
Yeah, unless by cat they mean like a
Jungle
lion.
cat.
Like
yeah.
But yeah, so that was apparently a theory at one point. But I guess that's the magic of it, that it defies physics, right?
I suppose so.
So in several trials, kids that, you know, how kids were always like coerced into saying things under duress.
I hate that shit.
They would say that cats were sent to them by witches in town, which I guess like that makes me feel sad because maybe that's a kid trying not to blame an adult and they were trying to blame a random cat. But they were saying, oh, a cat was sent to me by a witch and the cat made me sick. So the witch is poisoning me in some way.
I see.
And some of the sick kids reported that cats would be in the room with them even when others couldn't see them. So this could have been mental illness. This could have been coercion. Yeah. We don't know. But they would say that there were cats all around them. How could nobody else see them? And they'd say that the cat would keep them awake all night. So it would keep them from getting better from when they got sick, or the cat would bite them and scratch them, or like straight up speak to them. And like,
oh God.
Other witnesses claimed that they did see cat-shaped things moving under their blankets, but if they pulled the blanket back, there was never an actual cat. So, you know, take that with a very large grain of salt.
I will.
And black cats became a prominent symbol of the local witch, and local witches were even rumored to be feeding cats her own blood or even breast milk just so they were connected in some way. And
oh God.
Crazy. Like, so cats are also vampires?
Yeah, they're like trying to find any ridiculous thing to get people riled up.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just listing random accusations from witch trials at this point.
Yeah.
And this is where we have heard of the phrase before of like witches' marks, where basically if you had any fucking blemish, they would use that as an excuse that you're a witch. They said that these witch marks were special nipples to feed their familiars.
For fuck's sake.
if you had a birthmark, apparently your cat was suckling from it to
God damn it. That's
to have
so
your
weird.
blood in them. Ugh.
Ew.
In the 1700s to the 1800s, this is when owning a cat as a pet starts to be seen as a good exercise. And that's because this is in like royal England that like they're, even though it seemed as negative and there's witch trials going on, they saw owning a pet in general as a good way to teach responsibility to kids and all this stuff. But because cats still had this negative thing going on and they weren't portrayed very well, a lot of times that's why you'll see that Old English people had dogs as pets, because dogs didn't have
that
the
was more
association with evil.
acceptable. Right.
So in the 1800s, it was mainly dogs. They actually even said that dogs represented the English because they were loyal and brave and steadfast. And yeah, and England thought that dogs best represented them, but cats were still associated with like rodents and witches. So, so don't get a cat. But now let's deep dive. This is still in England, and this is in the late 1800s where we see a shift, because this is a bit of a deep dive. This was where I thought, like, should I add this to my notes?
Yes.
And then I thought I should. In the 1860s, people are still getting mainly dogs. They're not really into cats. There's this one guy who fucking loves cats.
Okay.
He fucking doesn't care. He loves cats. His name is Harrison Weir.
Okay.
And he organized the very first cat show.
What?
He loved cats before anyone else. He wanted to prove to England how wonderful cats were by displaying them for the world. And he called cats, this is 2 quotes in one, he called cats possibly the most perfect and certainly the most domestic of animals, and an object of increasing interest, admiration, and uncultured beauty. And then in comparison to dogs, he said, cats can unlatch doors or even knock with their paws for admittance. They catch rats and mice. They are full of sense. The dog is generally useless, and the cat, a pet or not, is of service.
The dog is useless. I'm sure people loved that.
Yeah, especially like fuck you, England, where like we've been keeping dogs for almost 200 years.
Yeah.
But
your animal that you associate with? What a loser.
So he hosts his very first show in London at the Crystal Palace, but there was such little interest because nobody fucking liked cats that he realized that the Crystal Palace, where he was going to host the cat show, one of the ways that they kept rats low in the palace was because they had all these fucking stray cats everywhere.
Oh my God. So
he hired workmen to catch the strays and enter them into the competition because he didn't have real entrants for his show. Because how do you have a cat show where nobody's going to bring in a cat because nobody owns a cat because nobody likes cats? So he literally just
But you're trying to prove that cats are great. Yeah.
So he just got a bunch of fucking stray cats and put them in his cat show.
Stop it right now.
And the show ended up being a success, and cats became more welcome in the eyes of the public. And
what was the show? Like, was it like feats of strength? Was it like?
It was like a dog show today, where it's like they like
go
based on their
hoops.
Their no, not like events. I think it was like a basically a pretty competition. Like I think it was like,
so it's just like to show them.
To show them, truly. Like, here's a bunch of cats sitting in cages.
Right, great.
Although I wonder, because there is one cat named Fulmer, and he was a champion show cat who ended up earning 150 prizes.
Yeah, he was.
So I don't know what the hell Fulmer did besides like take a nap in his cage, but so anyway, it ended up working out really well. People liked cats by the end, and this actually did almost like a 180 in England, because cats went from being like gross pest control and linked with witchcraft to being, I guess because it was like a cat show, cats became associated with like the upper class, and they became connected to like upper class snobbery. So
oh my,
if you're wondering when people think that cats to this day are very like snooty, it might go all the way back to the 1860s first cat show.
This is bananas.
So this helped them become more of a common pet because now even the upper class wanted in on this. And in 1887, only like 10 years later, Harrison Weir also founded the National Cat Club. And the next cat show he hosted went from having barely any entrants and having to use strays to having over 300 cats be entered into his competition.
The fuck up. That's hilarious.
Ladies' Realm magazine, they made an article. They wrote an article about Harrison Weir saying that he had, quote, done wonders for the amelioration of pussy.
And for that, he deserves
There's my
a
deep
round
dive
of applause.
There's my deep dive.
Wow.
So as of the 1900s, cats were in with England, but a few years before that, the colonies in the U.S. are being created, and this is at the time when cats are still seen as associated with witches. Black cats are evil, and so when we get to the colonies in the U.S., the witch trials become, even when they become a thing of the past, the folklore of black cats has remained after all this time. So, okay, so we're in the U.S. now. So in Southern and Appalachian lore, now that the stories of black cats have come over to the U.S., there's now lore talking about black cats appearing as familiars for devils and witches and malicious spirits. Black cats have also become associated with crossroads folklore, and that's where people go to do rituals. And so people thought, if you're at a crossroad, cats could be there. This is also possibly due to the association between cats and Hecate, because she's also a deity linked to crossroads. And today there are a number of superstitions about black cats still being maybe not evil, but still bringing an omen to you or bad luck. So that's where we are in today's world, where people say that a black cat crossing your path brings you bad luck. This could also be rooted in the belief that cats are synonymous with intersections, with crossroads. So that's why if they cross your path. I never thought about
that. Yeah.
And it could mean that the witch or the devil himself is passing by you. And now we think of the black cat itself as the cause of trouble instead of it being a devil. We just think the cat is inherently unlucky.
Right.
It's also said that black cats, if they gather around a house, it said that black cats will gather around a house when there's a dead body inside, like vultures, which is eerie. An Appalachian superstition says that if a cat licks its fur backwards, trouble is on the way.
Licks its fur backwards. Oh, okay.
So instead of looking it down, looking at the other direction.
Okay.
If a strange black cat looks through your window, the entire house will have bad luck.
Oh.
If a black cat wanders through the door of a wake, another family member will soon die.
Oh no.
I will say, if I was at a wake and I saw a black cat, I would get a little heebie-jeebies out of that.
I'd be out of there. I'd be like, who invited this guy?
Yeah, I'd be like, go home. Black cats will climb into babies' cribs and steal their breath while they sleep.
Okay, that's a rumor, though. You're saying that's just a...
No, obviously,
okay,
that's a rumor.
I'm just making sure.
That's one of the superstitions that if you have a baby, to not let a black cat get near them because they'll climb into the crib and steal their sleep.
Yes, I heard that when I was pregnant.
It's actually an old explanation for SIDS.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Due to their association with witches, black cats are strongly linked, obviously, to modern day Halloween, and seeing a black cat on Halloween is said to be especially bad luck. I don't know if you remember this, but I had a black cat in the early 2000s. Shout out Rocky. In the 2000s, there was a rumor that kind of went everywhere. I thought this predated the 2000s, but I guess this was just of our era, that on Halloween, people would try to attack black cats.
Yes, I remember that. Because we had two black cats, Shadow and Smokey, at that time. And they were outdoor cats, so we were like, uh-oh.
Exactly. So there were PSAs about bringing your cat inside on Halloween because people would try to kill cats to avoid the
Was that
bad
actually
luck.
true or not really?
I think it was just a rumor. I'm sure there was some asshole who tried, but
I
think that was a rumor.
Okay.
But it was like to prevent bad luck, you kill a black cat, but The other rumor is that if you kill a black cat, that cat will curse you. Maybe with jail time. So
yeah, I was like, I'll fucking curse you if you kill a black cat.
the legal system will curse you.
Happily.
Despite their negative association, some say that black cats are actually the total opposite and bring you good luck. There's another Appalachian legend that if you gently tug on a black cat's tail, it brings good luck. Vikings, so try that with moonshine.
Sure, they
Tell me how
love
it goes.
that. I'm sure they love that theory.
Vikings even kept cats on their ships for good luck, and an old Irish remedy for sore eyes. Get ready, Christine. Do this with moonshine. Dip a black cat's tail in eye cream.
Ew.
Rub the tail on your eyes 3 times in a circular motion, chanting, "May I be cured." You know
This
what
is
you
for
could also
dry
do
eyes?
for dry eyes. It's eye cream. It's like, well, it's fucking eye cream. Just rub that on your eyes. You don't need
Are
the
you sure
black
it's not
cat's
like
tail.
cream? Like cream?
I think it's eye cream.
Oh, okay.
Either way, cream, I imagine I feel like you're doing something to I don't think the black cat's tail is specifically doing anything.
I don't think either one. I think you're just getting cat hair in your eyes and it's watering them up. And now they feel like they're tearing up.
And they're puffing up. Yeah. And then they're.
Yeah, maybe you have an allergy. I don't know.
Ugh. Well, so give that a shot and let me know.
I won't, but thanks.
Another Appalachian tradition is to rub a cat's tail on your eyelid to get rid of a sty. I would argue that causes a sty.
Let's not do that either, guys. Let's not.
And then there's also folklore that says that black cats can predict weather. And if there's one Irish rumor that if cats are scratching on a chair or sitting with their back to a fire, rain is to come.
Oh.
If a black cat walks into your house, we're almost done, I swear. If a black cat walks into your house through the front door, it brings good luck to your entire home. But now I'm confused if it walks through the front door, but if it crosses your path, is it a net positive? What's going on?
Oh, does it cancel itself out? Yeah.
Many occultists today have older opinions on black cats and still associate them with protectors of bad spirits, and thus the black cat as a witch's familiar is, still at play a lot of times.
All right.
And today, I want to see if you can guess, but today the top 3 countries with the most cat owners are...
Top 3 countries. Like, okay, the U.S.?
The U.S. is number 3 with 43% of households having a cat.
Okay, who has a cat? Sweden.
No, it's number 1 is Russia with 59% of households and Ukraine with 49% of households.
Wow, I would not have guessed Russia or Ukraine, so there you go.
So we come in 3rd.
All right.
And then the last thing I'm going to say, this is my last fun fact, and it is a quote from The Collector.
What? The Collector?
The Collector. It's a website.
Oh, okay. That sounds very scary. The Collector.
It does. The cat sounds like it could be a collector of souls or something.
Yeah, it sounds like a Criminal Minds character, villain,
No. This is just an article on the history of black cats, or cats in general, I guess. But this is what they had to say. The British government offices are old and built in an area where there has always been problems with rodent infestations. Since the early 16th century, a cat has always been employed by the government to deal with the problem. Today, the current holder of the title of Chief Mouser to the Cabinet Office is Larry, who has held the position since 2011 and has served through the 3 administrations of prime ministers.
I love him.
So shout out to Larry for doing...
Or Lawrence, if you're feeling a little more posh.
Chief Lawrence the Mouser to the Cabinet Office.
The Mouser! Okay, I'm sorry to scream, but that's delightful. Really delightful.
So anyway, that's the last thing I have to say about it, but that is the 101 to Black Cat lore.
Oh, Em, you did such a good job.
Thank you.
I never even thought about that as a topic. It's so good.
I thought, that was a good
it.
pre-Halloween situation,
Question, did you know anybody growing up who truly believed who was anti-black cat? I'm curious if you had someone in your life who was very anti-black cat.
I always heard about it as it was always understood to be a wives' tale.
Okay, well,
why? Did you?
Because my stepmother was so against black cats
Oh.
Not in a jokey way, not in like a, oh, I'm just superstitious. Like she genuinely believed that they would do harm if they were in her vicinity.
Ugh.
So, yeah. So when we had two black cats, she would park at the end of the street and we'd have to walk home because she was like, I'm not even shitting you. And I'm talking, sorry, the cats were not at her house. The cats were at my mom's house. But when she dropped us off at our mom's house, like when she found out we got a black cat, she parked at the bottom of the hill and we had to walk up because she was like, I'm not letting the cat cross my path. And we were
That's
like,
wild.
that's not real. And it's a kitten and it's like 6 months old. It's fine. And she was like, I won't. So we were
I
like,
don't
okay.
think I had anything like that with black cats, but I do actually know quite a few people who are actually still to this day terrified to walk under a ladder.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And I will say it wasn't just preserved for black cats. It was every possible superstition, salt. Like I was
Oof.
taught how to throw salt over my shoulder at a very young age. The ladders, Friday the 13th, doesn't leave the house, like all of it, like hardcore.
It's interesting to me, we've already covered the number 13 before, but I mean, it is wild how like a superstition can prevail so much so like to this day, like elevators don't have a 13th floor,
No,
hotels
yeah.
won't have a 13th floor, like.
And it like dictates a lot of her life. Like, no kidding. I mean, even like the sidewalk cracks, like every little thing that you've heard as being like a potential superstition is something she takes like, you know how sometimes you're like, oh, knock on wood, just in case. Like for her, it's a very, very, very real thing. Like it's based in reality.
Sounds like an OCD thing too.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, as somebody with OCD now, like, or who's been finally diagnosed and understands what that is, I look at it and I'm like, huh, but I'm no doctor, but it does have similar vibes
yeah.
to that. So I agree with you. But I don't know. It's just something that used to drive me crazy because I would have to take my backpack in my school uniform and walk up, up
That's wild.
steep ass hill just because she didn't want to.
That is a steep ass hill. Oof.
Yeah, it is. Right. That's true. You've seen it. It's a steep ass fucking hill.
I mean, also you were living in a cemetery like Wednesday Addams. Imagine if like a black cat happened to also be,
I have
in your cemetery.
Hilarious pictures of our black cats sitting in the cemetery because people would go in there and see the black cats and you could hear them if I had my window open, you could hear people being like, oh my God, a black cat in the cemetery. And I'm like, Shadow, like we've been trying to train him not to go in the cemetery, but they would just sit on the gravestones. And I'm like, you
were
two
always
know
such
what
an
you're
aesthetic.
doing.
You're just like a walking vibe.
I just feel like they knew what they were doing. They were like, we know we're causing a ruckus in this neighborhood.
They were like, we'll get him. Don't worry.
We'll get him this time. Yeah. I thought it was hilarious. Some people not so much, but I love black cats.
I will say.
Funny? Oh. Sorry. I was just going to say I love black cats, but like so I have a very white cat, very black cat. My white cat is definitely the more like scary one.
Oh yeah, Juniper's terrifying. Moonshine
He's
is
the more intense.
Precious.
Yeah, like if anyone's going to be the devil himself, it's definitely Juniper, not Moonshine.
I was actually on before people freak out. No, I'm not actually serious about it, but I was bored last night and for like chuckles I was on Pet Finder.
Oh, we all do that.
Like,
yeah, don't worry.
It's like Zillow, but pets. So
it
I was like, let me just see if I were to adopt a pet right now, which one would I adopt?
Mm-hmm.
And I've always thought, I mean, black cats are my number one favorite. And I also really like the black and gray striped ones, like the really tight stripes.
Cute. Yeah. Oh,
I think they're so cute. But white cats, I don't like them. I have a weird visceral reaction to them. And Juniper really confirms it for me. But you know what is his redeeming quality is the different colored eyes.
Oh, yeah. See, that cracks me up about him. He has those blue and
there's
green
something
eyes.
about it where I'm like, I'm intrigued, but from a distance. But like white cats and I seemingly have never gotten along very well.
That cracks me up because also all we know about Juniper, because he was a stray, but he was born to a black and white like tuxedo cat, and then the mom was a Turkish Angora. And so I looked up Turkish Angora, and because they have that double eye color thing, and they're described as the Turkish prince cat breed.
Well,
And I'm
ain't
like,
that
well,
the
that
truth?
that fits perfectly well. It's a very like Lady and the Tramp situation because the other cat was just like a black and white street cat. The mom was like a princess, you know.
What was their kid's name? Scamp. Lady and the Tramp, their son was named Scamp.
Oh.
I guess Juniper is the scamp of the household.
Although he's the opposite of this. He's like the other sibling who's like, no, I'm more like mom.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Oh, but anyway, I love my kitty cats. Well, good job, Em. That was really good.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
didn't
Now I'm
know
ready.
any of that.
I'm ready to be bummed out.
Okay, I feel like I fucked up because I did not bring like a Halloweeny episode because next episode is Halloween episode. So I was like, I'm gonna go all out for the Halloween episode. This one, is horribly upsetting.
Well, do what you do best, Christine, and tell us all about it.
Sorry, I don't know if you can tell, my palms are already drenched in sweat because I'm nervous. Okay. So this is the story of Heather Mayer. And just a little note here, this case is still active. It's relatively recent. So a lot of this information comes from one particular source, which is a thorough investigative journalism piece by Andy Mannix. And that was published in the Star Tribune this year. It's one of those pieces where I'm like, oh, I'll just skim it, but then I end up like really invested and read the whole thing, look through all the photos, and it's a really well done piece. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. Andy Mannix interviewed people involved in the case, pored over official reports, and listened to recorded police interviews to put together this story. And because the case is open, there's not really any like dateline on it yet, or like any contemporary TV shows that have covered it. So it's like a relatively new case.
That's very unlike you, because
I feel like
characteristically you usually wait until you've got the answer at the end, or a lot of people have covered it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that I think this is one that Saoirse reached out to me, our researcher, and was like, "Hey, what do you think about this one?" Because like a lot of times I'll say, "Oh, here are the ones I want to cover soon. Like, let's start researching." But I think this one, Saoirse was like, "Hey, I just like my eye, it just caught my eye, and I was like, go for it." So I was really new to the case as well. And then Saoirse also wrote another note here saying, I want to call attention to the use of the word victim in this story because, as we're discussing the word spooky and all the, the meaning of words, I'm not going to come in so hot like we did last time. But I'm going to say, this is something I didn't really think about, but I guess it's just important to think about our words, like think about language. Even if we continue using it and stuff, it's always nice to kind of know where it comes from, know what its intended meaning is. And apparently there are several people within this story who refer to be called survivors instead of victims, which I think is a fair, but, there are people in the story who did not survive. And so for that, we would use the word victim in this case, but we're trying to use it as sensitively as possible. It's just, it's just another word to kind of think about, especially in the true crime space. I feel like these words are so loaded. And so just something to think about. In any case, this is the story of Heather Mayer. I want to, and I don't often do this, but I want to give a massive trigger warning for domestic violence, sexual violence. It's really fucked up. I'm so sorry, you guys. It's really fucked up. Ready?
I'm
so sorry.
As the mouthpiece for everybody. Yep.
I'm so sorry. Okay, here we go. Okay. So, Heather Mayer grew up in Nerstrand, Minnesota, which is a rural and quiet town with a population of just 273 as of the 2020 census. And Heather's mother, Tracy Detling, was unfortunately already experiencing a very difficult life. Just one of those like what was the phrase we accidentally used when we were trying to describe that book where we were like, bad things happening only? by Lemony Snicket. Yeah, a series of unfortunate events. Yeah, it felt like that was already Heather's mother's experience, because her first child, Lucas, died of SIDS as a baby. Then her daughter at age 19 was in a terrible car accident, and she became quadriplegic with lifelong cognitive disabilities, just like freak accidents, both of them so far.
Wow.
And so then there was Heather, and Heather grew up, despite all this trauma within her family, like pretty quote unquote normally for kids her age in this town. She went to local church and football games. She played outside, spent long weekends at a cabin, exploring and having fun. Loved to read, especially romance novels, was very witty, creative, had a really fun sense of humor, loved to make people laugh. But she was also struggling pretty deeply because, I mean, these things seem to come in threes. Heather, Tracy's third child, was raped as a teenager by two men who gave her a ride home and refused to let her out of the car until she gave in to their demands. And so this sent her in a lifelong, like, kind of anxiety spiral, and it just contributed to a lot of mental health issues she had, mostly disabling anxiety that basically made it impossible for her to function throughout the day. And it was, I mean, debilitating, you know? And that was starting at age 16. So she really struggled. She dropped out of high school. She started sneaking out and was, having sex with people. And this was kind of a coping mechanism, for trying to gain control back after being sexually assaulted. She did eventually get her GAD, but even work, as an adult was difficult with the intense anxiety she had. She had a kind-hearted and protective nature, and just as an example of that, when she was 17, she met a teenage boy who lived under a local bridge, and she really wanted to help him. And so as she was trying to help him get back on his feet, they actually ended up in a romantic relationship in which Heather became pregnant, and the two of them got married. So Heather gave birth to their first son and then two more boys in the following years. So they had 3 kids together. But unfortunately, her marriage to their father didn't last. And by age 25, she was a single mother with these 3 kids. What Heather was seeking this whole time was some sense of community, like a place to belong, somewhere where she felt like understood and safe. And she found that place in the BDSM scene.
Sure.
So BDSM, for those who don't know, stands for bondage and discipline, dominance and submission, sadism, and masochism. And, I think a lot of us nowadays are much more aware of how the kind of bad rap it got over the years is not quite correct.
No, it's not.
Is misunderstood. Do you know what I mean?
Very misunderstood.
You and I have talked about this just as a concept, and I feel like people kind of sometimes get the wrong idea about that community. And so it may be surprising for some of you, but, we're all learning to find out that there is actually a thriving global community surrounding BDSM. But to those who are involved in it, like, that's the norm. It makes perfect sense because people who engage in BDSM, very strict rules and regulations to keep it safe for the people involved, very structured, very welcoming place. Unlike what you might hear, on TV or in the media. So people who engage in BDSM often describe it as an exchange of power, where one partner consents to submit to another partner who consents to dominate. So you got like a dom relationship, sub relationship. When executed correctly, it's a healthy consensual relationship that gives people in either role a strong sense of control over their own bodies and lives. And that's what's so appealing to so many people. BDSM activities are called scenes because participants agree beforehand on what they will do, as if sort of following a script that's been set in advance.
Yeah,
they use
it's very, I was gonna say, it's also, I know it's very, very heavily based in communication and trust. So like there's
communication, that's a big one.
Yeah, there's you're not going into things without, I'm talking about it like I'm part of this community. I have friends though, so I ask just about every question. But yeah, it's a very it's if you're not completely transparent from the beginning and you're not with a partner you trust, it's
Yeah.
not happening.
Yeah, you need to be really on board with being with following the rules to make sure everyone feels safe and uh has a good experience. It just can get twisted and abused by the wrong people, as we will see in this story, unfortunately. So BDSM activities, they're called scenes because it's sort of like a scripted situation. They use strict boundaries, open communication, and safe words to ensure the safety of everyone involved and like the comfort of everyone involved as well. Many people who participate are actually survivors of past sexual violence and other abuse, and they feel that BDSM allows them to reclaim control over their bodies and work through their trauma among like minded people with shared experiences. And just to clarify, that's not to say everyone who is, in the BDSM community is doing it because they were, sexually assaulted. That's not at all what I'm saying. But there are definitely some people who find it a very cathartic and healing way to deal with past trauma like that. And that is where Heather comes in, because that is how Heather felt. She was like, you know what? This is a great place for me to feel like I'm in control of my sexuality and body after being, brutally assaulted all those years ago. Research has found that not only are people in the BDSM community no more likely to experience relationship issues or trauma than the general population, but in many cases, they're actually happier and more fulfilled, which is interesting. And according to Dr. Filippo M. Nimby, a researcher of clinical psychology and sex, quote, people engaging in BDSM are usually people who have thought a lot about their sexuality. They have explored and faced their sexual boundaries. Basically, they know what they like and they do it. This is a positive outcome on their sexual experiences and on the overall quality of their lives. So, BDSM is often an extremely social activity with multiple participants. Some are engaging in the acts with one another, others are watching, but the community is highly self-policing with widely agreed upon rules, and you have to agree to those rules before you join. Heather played a vital part in her community. She was a moderator for an online BDSM group with hundreds of members who also got together in person for casual meetups and parties. And basically, Heather's job was to vet new members and keep out those people who are predators and were just trying to use BDSM to veil abusive behaviors and violate people's consent. Yeah, that was her main task as part of this group.
Yeah, that's great.
Many people relied on Heather and admired her dedication to protecting their safety, protecting their community. But unfortunately, even the most informed, self-assured people can, of course, become victims of abuse. Although some people, sure, are more vulnerable to abuse due to social and socioeconomic factors, mental health factors, what have you, abuse, as we know, can happen to anyone. So Heather, this is where the asshole comes into the picture.
Oh.
She begins a relationship with a man named Asan Karam, who identified as a dom or a dominant. Asan grew up in the Twin Cities, and he got into martial arts at a young age to defend himself against frequent bullying. As part of this journey, he became a professional MMA, mixed martial arts fighter, but he retired early due to an injury. And that's when he began working as a security guard in St. Paul and also joined the local BDSM scene and became an active member. So Asan was 36 years old, and he was already living with a 24-year-old woman named Bella Bree when he started seeing Heather for the second time. That's because he had actually dated Heather many years before, very casually. So fast forward, they reconnect. He's already living with a young woman named Bella. And Bella was a student at the University of Minnesota, but she had to drop out for medical reasons because she was undergoing several back surgeries. So she was struggling to get back on her feet, literally and metaphorically. And she was about to lose her apartment when she met Asan on Tinder. And it felt like fate, right? Like,
oh gosh, okay.
Yeah, let's just throw out the term that I'm going to talk about in a moment called love bombing. Hassan immediately began to shower Bella with gifts and affection. This is oftentimes an abuse tactic within the dynamic of an abusive relationship. Often a manipulation tactic used to make someone dependent on the abuser or almost give the abuser control, make the other person feel safe and taken care of before things turn in a darker direction. Before long, Hassan asked Bella to move in with him because she was struggling to keep her own living situation together, and she happily agreed. They got married in March of 2018, which was only 7 months after they met. And once they got married, Hassan had Bella sign a submission contract.
Oh. Okay.
So, yeah, this submission contract named Hassan as Bella's owner.
Ooh.
He would dictate when she slept, when she woke up, her exercise routine, when she was allowed to eat, and when she was required to have sex with him. Failure to comply with the contract resulted in physical punishment. So apparently such contracts are not uncommon in the BDSM scene, but Hassan took things beyond consensual, which is where it becomes not part of the BDSM scene because consent is a huge part of BDSM.
Yeah, I'm already like I'm down with people signing contracts and BDSM and all. You already said the asshole.
You know what's coming, right?
So
Like we know what's coming.
I'm primed to hate this. Yeah.
I mean, I've already told you it's an abusive relationship, so saying like he controls when she has sex with him is the biggest red flag we've ever heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just the fact that this is not about a consensual dynamic, it's about an agreement for him to control every aspect of her life without her consent is worth, immediately, obviously.
Yeah, it's not about BDSM anymore. He just wants control of a person.
Yes, correct. So he often had other women staying in the house under false pretenses as well. There was one woman who moved in named Morgan, and he told, even though he's married to Bella at this point, he told Morgan that Bella was an ex-girlfriend who was just staying in his house because her mom died recently. And since he was Bella's owner, he ordered Bella to go along with this story and pretend to openly mourn her mother, who was, by the way, still alive, for weeks as part of like this weird story he was telling women to like get them to stay in his house. So essentially he now has a second woman living there under the pretense that, oh, Bella's just an ex-girlfriend and her mom died recently. Look how sad she is. So, yikes. Eventually, Hassan and Heather reconnect and they start seeing each other again. And Heather began staying over several nights a week before moving into the house as well as the third woman under the roof in autumn of 2018. Heather and Bella became friends, and Heather would go out of her way to make Bella smile, like surprising her at work with a picnic they shared, sitting on the hood of their car. And before long, Hassan, of course, started abusing all three women under the pretense of BDSM relationships. This is where things get very dark, folks. He started beating them violently beyond anything they'd consented to, with objects they never approved of, including metal pipes. Sometimes Heather's and Morgan's children stayed in the house, and the women had to endure violence silently so their children wouldn't hear it.
Oh my God.
Morgan later reported that Hassan even beat her until he broke her ribs, and he beat them until they would sometimes pass out from the pain. And then he would post photos of their bruises to social media under the guise of consensual BDSM, being like, look what a fun time we had.
Whoa.
This one's upsetting. They're all upsetting, but this one made me jump a little bit. Hassan once took a video holding Heather's head underwater in a bathtub.
Oof,
she
so
ended up
torture.
It's torture. She ended up with pneumonia, bronchitis, and an ear infection from that experience.
My God.
She once texted Hassan about his cruelty and abuse, saying, "You are going to hurt someone or kill someone someday." Hassan was drinking excessively, and despite the situation, Heather still wanted to help him. It was just kind of her nature. In one message, he insulted her and called her slow. Heather responded, I am not. I'm intelligent, resourceful, helpful, and kind. I'm not always perfect, and I have my less than pretty moments, but I'm a pretty good person who just chooses the wrong men to be with. What's crazy is how smart you are, and instead of using it to have a great life and happiness, you would rather hide and do nothing and stay in all of this chaos.
Wow, good for her.
I
And
know. So that, yeah, that gives you an idea of like that dynamic.
I also, so two questions.
Mm-hmm.
One is, and you may not know these, but how was she able to say something like that to him without repercussion? And
Mm.
two, was she or any of these women, because it sounds like they were able to leave and go to work and stuff like that, were they afraid to go to the police, or did they think because I signed a contract, there's nothing they can do about it?
So I don't know the answer to the first question. I mean, my guess is that she probably was punished for that. But as for your second question, I do have a little bit of information on that in a couple bullet points. So once I share those, let me know if that answers it or not.
Okay.
I'll get to that momentarily. I think it might answer your question. So, true to Heather's protective nature and trying to keep people safe, she often took beatings on behalf of the other two women whenever she could. Like she would try to step in
Oh
the way
God.
to keep them, to spare them from any of the abuse.
What a
So
hero. Jeez.
I know. So in answer to your second question about, was it fear keeping them? Was it the contract? Well, in December of 2018, Morgan actually made her getaway in fear for her life. While Isan was at work, her coworker helped her move into an apartment rented under his name so that Isan couldn't find her. And what's really kind of a sweet twist to the story, which is probably the only sweet twist to the story, is that happily for Morgan, the man who helped her move into an apartment under his name, they actually fell in love, got married, bought a house, and had a child together. So
wow.
very like Prince Charming, like he saved the day. But Heather and Bella were still stuck with Isan. And again, I think this might add a little more context as well to your question. But Heather and Bella were stuck there because in early 2019, police responded to a call from Heather because she had broken up with Isan and he had attacked her, locked her out of the house with her children still inside.
Oh,
And
shit.
police had to break a window to get inside, and Isan actually tried to grab one of the officer's guns in the process. So in the end, he was taken to jail temporarily on domestic abuse charges and obstruction of justice. And Heather filed a no contact order and vowed to stay away from Isan. But as we know all too well, leaving an abuser isn't simple or easy. It can be extremely dangerous because abusers often follow through with their threats of retaliation. Many abuse victims fear for the lives, not only of their own lives, but of their friends, their children, their relatives, because abusers know how to make threats that are genuinely terrifying, like to threaten your family, your children, your coworkers. Like it goes beyond just a threat to your life. It goes to your own circle.
The layers to the onion are deeper than you know. Yeah. And it's breaking up with an abuser is not a linear situation.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. One study actually found that 20% of homicide victims related to intimate partner violence were not even the victims themselves. They were actually family members, new intimate partners, friends, acquaintances, police officers, and strangers instead of the actual immediate abuse victims themselves. So 20% of deaths involved are like not even of,
it's just people who are collateral damage in the crossfires. Yeah.
And that's almost scarier a lot of times than threats to yourself, because like the last thing you want is someone to hurt your parents, your children, as part of this. So, and it seems like oftentimes abusers will go through with those threats. So, of course, Isan had emotional control over Heather, and she definitely feared what he was capable of. She had lived with him for a long time, and she also felt like this was her home. Like she had lived there for so long. She had
Right.
known him for so long. Her children lived there. And victims of abuse are also conditioned to rely on their abusers for emotional and often financial security. So, in the end, as you said, not a linear process by any means. Heather actually asked the court to lift her no contact order against Hassan. She changed her mind while he sent her texts instructing her how to downplay the abuse that she suffered.
Mm.
So Hassan told Heather to tell the judge she suffered from bipolar disorder and that she stopped taking her medications, and that's what led to her accusations against him.
Wow.
Yikes.
Wow.
It seems apparently like even the attorney, his attorney, instructed Heather on how to lift the order, which was a huge legal conflict and also ethically a big ethical violation.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing about the abuse and saying, "Oh, here's what to say to the judge to get my client off the hook."
And the
Very
scariest thing
disturbing.
too is like I can't imagine the additional punishments or rage that she would be going home to. And and even think about Bella, who was, because now one of the girls has already left and didn't
Right.
come back. For a second, Heather was gone, so poor Bella was getting the brunt of
Now
three
there's
people
exactly.
with an angry man who's
She's like
taking
the
out
only
additional
victim
anger.
left. Yeah, the only again, I'm saying victim. See, I'm trying to think more,
Sure, yeah.
open-mindedly or what have you, or think about my words. But yeah, she's the only woman left, as you said, to like bear the brunt of this.
Yeah, when usually it was spread across three people and he
Right.
was already one level of angry. Now imagine incredibly angry and she's the only one there.
Right,
And then
right.
when Heather comes back, imagine like the quote punishment she's getting for
Oof.
putting him through all that turmoil.
And if
It's
she
like,
doesn't follow his instructions and his lawyer's instructions, I'm sure that would only make the punishment worse.
and if he knows, I'm just trying to think like an abuser at this point, but just to follow along. But like
Mhm.
if her whole thing was always like essentially volunteering as tribute every time that he wanted to hurt somebody, and he knows that she wants to protect, you
Mhm.
know, Bella and the other girl, like when she comes back, her punishment might be watching Bella get beaten up or something, of
Oof.
like, look what you did, like
Yeah, I have to imagine part of the
mm,
suffering or stress or like turmoil in her mind too is like what's happening to Bella while I'm gone? Like
yeah,
should I go back and like make sure she's okay? I mean,
that's got to be one of the reasons that she even went back, because he said something to her about like, I'm
mm,
gonna hurt Bella if you don't come back, or
yeah,
something.
definitely at least implied threats, whether they were
Mm.
spoken or not, but just a very, very scary and complex situation. And it just, nothing, I mean, nothing angers me more than people who just say, like, well, then leave,
I can't stand. Well, if it just there's no faster way to out yourself as someone who's never been through it.
right.
So
Exact point. Great point. Great point. Great point. So, this attorney apparently instructed Heather on how to lift the order, which was a huge conflict of interest and ethical violation. And the judge even commented that it would probably be good for Heather's children to get back together with Hassan, to have a stable family life with
whoa,
Hassan.
who said that?
The judge.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
are
yeah.
you
It's
kidding me?
infuriating. It's infuriating. So the order was lifted in June of 2019. I mean, it was at Heather's request, but still very shady situation. 2
Can
weeks later,
I? Okay,
what? Sorry, what
nothing.
did you say? Oh.
I was gonna I was gonna ask. I hear 2019, and I know what's around the corner, which is 2020.
Hmm. Well,
Does okay? I
let's just go back to
okay.
2019 because so June of 2019, the order is lifted. 2 weeks later, at age 33 years old, Heather was dead.
Oh,
On
okay.
July 4th, 2019, police responded to the house Heather shared with Hassan to a call from Bella. Apparently, Heather had hanged herself in the basement.
Mm.
When police arrived, a woman named Holly was doing chest compressions on Heather. She immediately told police that Heather had bipolar disorder and hadn't taken her meds earlier, which was kind of an eerie echo of Hassan's manipulation tactics. Like, tell the judge you have bipolar. Initially, Holly reported that Hassan was at work when Heather died, but a little bit later, she actually told police that Hassan had been there when Heather died, and he'd helped her take Heather down from the chain before they called police. Then she explained that he fled the scene while Holly did CPR. And Holly explained it by saying, we know how it looks because of, like, the domestic violence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So police briefly spoke with Hassan at the house later that night, and he told them Heather had willingly climbed into the chain, which strangled her, and that she had the keys and could have released herself at any time.
Bullshit.
He said he left Heather alone in the chain, although he did check on her several times throughout the night. And when he found her dead, they called the police right away, according to him. The police asked Hassan to do an interview, and Hassan told them to contact his lawyer, but there is no record that the police ever followed up with him again.
What?
They observed the scene. They saw sex and drug paraphernalia in the basement with Heather. She was undressed, and they immediately ruled the death a suicide and said, the end, case closed.
That takes my breath away fully.
It is breathtaking in the worst way.
I wish this was the first time on this show I had something nasty to say about the police and their lack of investigative skills. How do you... What? How do you...
Fortunately,
okay.
Death investigator Brianna Dibble of the Hennepin County Medical Examiner's Office was not convinced.
Good.
And as someone
God.
One person had some,
a woman, by
a
the
little
way?
insight. Yeah. Yeah, a woman.
Funny.
She had investigated hundreds of deaths in her career, and she had never seen a woman commit suicide while naked. That was actually the thing that stood out to her the most.
Oh.
Heather's children were upstairs, and she thought it was unlikely Heather would risk one of them finding her without clothes on. And, just seriously strong note here, this is not to shame victims of suicide who, would take their lives in other circumstances.
Right.
Brianna herself, just based on her own professional and personal experience, found this very unusual, and it was a red flag. And she also noted the many injuries covering Heather's body. Police told Brianna not to bother with any homicide investigation protocol regarding Heather's body. They had even covered her with a dirty sheet, which contaminated the scene.
Oh my God.
I know.
Oh my God.
Brianna followed homicide protocol anyway. So she did, but the police had already made up their minds. This is when Tracy, Heather's mom, comes back into the picture.
Okay.
Tracy gets a call about her daughter's death, and she rushes to her grandchildren and then asked police if Hassan had killed Heather. She did not believe Heather would die by suicide, especially with her own children in the house. And Tracy already knew about Hassan's abuse. She had actually pleaded with Heather to leave him, and she was convinced that Hassan was actually the cause of her daughter's death. However, the county ultimately decided not to file any charges related to Heather's death. And this is when Tracy went on a rampage. She demanded everything from the county. She wanted documents, reports, everything down to police body cam footage, all of it. She wanted access to all of it. And as she was getting this information, she realized very quickly that things were not adding up. So after Bella's initial short interview with the police the day Heather's body was found, she later told investigators that Hassan and Holly had actually coached her on what to say. Okay. She admitted it was all about just making sure I don't say that he left her there, that she did it herself. So now Bella's basically saying Hassan made me say all those things to police. Like, oh no, it was all her.
Right. I mean, I
Hassan
feel like we
had
all saw that
nothing
coming.
to do with it. Exactly. She said, quote, he was there with her, and he left her there, chained by the neck in the basement by herself while they were doing alcohol and cocaine. I don't think she took her life. And that's like a damning statement from someone who lives in the house, knows Heather very well, is close with her, and is in essentially the same relationship with Hassan that Heather is. So it's someone who really intimately knows the details of this relationship. So if she's saying, I don't think she was the one who took her life, like that should count for something, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
So it was vital for Hassan that everyone believed Heather put herself in the chain and had access to the key to free herself at any time. But Bella said that when she discovered Heather was dead and tried to call the police, Hassan and Holly said they needed to find the key to get her down first. So she helped them search for 10 minutes until Hassan said he found the key right at Heather's feet, which Bella
Oh.
said did not make sense to me.
Yeah, how convenient.
How fucking convenient. He unlocked Heather, took her down, and told police the key was right there for Heather to use all along. She just didn't use it. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Bella also told police she had seen Heather in handcuffs with her hands behind her back the morning she died, and the autopsy photos showed contusions on her wrists. So if Heather were handcuffed around her back, she wouldn't have even been able to use the key that was supposed to take the chain off of her neck.
The second that I heard, oh, she had the key on her, it's like, no, she didn't.
Like what are you talking about?
Or if she did, if she felt herself dying, she would have done something about it. Like, so immediately I knew that was bullshit. Okay.
Well, he's claiming it's suicide. So he's saying, oh, she must have tossed the key or, intentionally not used the key.
Nobody else is playing that game.
No,
so,
and it doesn't make a lot of sense, especially if her hands were literally tied behind her back.
Yeah.
Okay, like that's
like
not
what is she, Houdini?
Work.
No.
Yeah, exactly. So I love this about Tracy, Heather's mom. She guesses her daughter's passwords and accesses her social media, which I love. Her social medias and texts, and she finds messages where Heather says Hassan did not respect her safe word, red. Red is actually somewhat of a universal safe word in the BDSM community, and a common safe word is actually useful in social settings so that if there are multiple people involved in scenes, they know, everyone kind of knows when a person is asking to pause, so they can keep a scene safe, even from the outside, which I think is really cool.
So smart. I didn't even think about that.
I know. Fun fact. So when someone uses their safe word, the supposed way that this is supposed to go is that everyone involved in the scene should stop to see what the person needs immediately. No hesitation. No, it's safe word means stop.
Mm-hmm.
In messages, Heather described Hassan violating that rule. And this breaks my heart, like really makes me upset. It says, she texted him, I said red so many times.
Oh.
It's fucking heartbreaking.
So you know she was like desperate.
She's trying to get out of the situation.
Oh my God.
In another message to Hassan, she accused him of using kink to justify abuse, which is absolutely what's happening. Using Heather's phone, Tracy got in touch with Morgan, the one who had, left a while before, the third woman that had been living there. And she agreed to make a statement to the police as well about Hassan's abuse. And she also sent Tracy an image from Hassan's social media in which he was subjecting Heather to violence and humiliation under the guise of BDSM online and sharing these things without her consent. Ready for the caption he wrote under one photo?
What?
He posted a photo of Heather, in bad shape, and wrote, "Pray for this bitch, y'all. She's got a rough month ahead of her." And Bella was able to confirm that the photo was taken while Heather's protective order against Hassan was still active. So,
whoa.
The reality was that Heather never actually managed to achieve any distance from Hassan to consider her options and leave for good. So even when she had that statement in place, he was still managing to keep her under his thumb.
And it confirms us saying, like, imagine the punishment she's going to get from this.
Precisely. Like, that piece of paper did nothing, as we see time and time again. Morgan sent investigators a video of Hassan choking her while she was drunk and high. And when apparently she didn't want to participate in scenes or record them, Hassan would make her drink alcohol and smoke weed until she was unable to refuse. And the flip side of that is unable to consent.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, quote, "In the video, you can see that I'm just not there at all." The investigator she spoke to this is going to make your blood boil, remained skeptical that any crime had occurred. He seemed to think willingness to participate in BDSM meant Hassan's victims automatically consented to everything and therefore couldn't be abused. I mean, that's like people who...
So she was asking for it.
She wanted it, yeah. And this is like the same, in my mind, a very similar thought process as people who say, oh, if you're married, you can't be raped by your partner because...
Or like if you're a sex worker, you're asking for it.
Yeah, for rape. Yeah, exactly. It's that same idea of like, well, you agreed to this contract, so it's very dark, very dark.
Oh my God. And even... yeah, and it just goes to show you how, I'm not even... not trying to accidentally become like, the advocates of BDSM here, but like this just goes to show you that like, which like, I mean, I guess we can be the advocates of BDSM, whatever. But
no, sure. I think they didn't ask for us to be, but
I didn't ask for it either. But like this just goes to show how much further we need to go in educating people, because all that. See, he was just riding off of a misconception again. Of like, oh well, you're a bunch of like sex freaks and beyond comprehension,
liked pain and getting tied up, so he beat you up. Isn't that what you wanted? There's just like such a lack of understanding of nuance of
what a fucking asshole. Oh my God,
it is. It's deeply disturbing. He went on. So there's more for you here. He compared Morgan's, quote, participation in the scenes to being coerced into a boxing match. He said, quote, you can't come back a month later and say, hey, I didn't agree to get my ass kicked, but at the same time, you agreed to fight. Oh, my God.
I don't know that person.
That ain't it, buddy. That ain't it.
I don't know this person, and I'm not trying to like, throw direct accusations at this person. But people who say things like that, I would never allow you to like keep my drink safe. Like,
no,
I wouldn't. Like, you're telling me that like I wonder what your history is with women, like, or anyone. Like, I'm just if that's the way that you think, I'm just curious what else is going on. I don't
trust you. Let's put it that way. I don't really trust you with my safety.
No, couldn't.
But with pressure and evidence mounting, police reluctantly agreed to reopen the case, and the investigation led to another survivor of Hassan's abuse, 32-year-old Gabby Schmeickel. She was new to BDSM and was looking for an experienced and caring mentor. She followed Morgan, Bella, and Heather on social media and thought that if experienced women like them associated with Hassan, he must be a safe person, which is a fair assumption, right? She's like, I trust these women. I know that they know what they're doing in the BDSM space. And if they're all with Hassan, like, he must be someone I can trust.
Right.
Obviously, unfortunately, that was not the case. So the day after Heather's death, Hassan arranged a meetup with Gabby. She noticed there was a weird vibe in the house, but nobody told her that Heather had been found dead the day before in the house.
Oof.
She was just like, the vibe is off. Yeah, the vibe is off.
Girl, yeah, you're right.
Girl, run. The vibe is off.
Trust your gut.
Hassan told Gabby if she wanted to be involved with him, she'd need to pass an audition. Which,
for fuck's sake.
Yeah, I knew you would love that. Which entailed her allowing Hassan to do anything he wanted to her with no safe word and no limits.
What?
Yeah.
So he's not even fucking playing the game anymore.
No, he's not even pretending.
How? And right after a death just happened here?
After Heather's death.
Wouldn't you be so anal to make sure that you didn't look at all like a dangerous fucking person?
It's baffling.
This is when you're picking to just say, oh, forget all of the rules in this very very heavily conditioned space.
Yeah.
Yes, rule-oriented industry or field or whatever. And to be like, oh, we're not going to do a contract. We're not going to do a safe word. If you don't have a safe word, I don't know enough about BDSM. So this could be, I don't know enough. But in my interpretation of it is if you don't have a safe word, you're not doing BDSM. Like, I feel like that's not how it works.
It feels like there's a standard for these relationships. Like,
yes,
the safe word is there for a very important reason, arguably like one of the most important reasons to keep everyone safe. I mean,
I can't imagine a bigger red flag.
yeah, big red, especially if he's saying like, oh yeah, I'm definitely safe to be around. But in order to get to that relationship with me, you first have to do this. The opposite. You have to feel completely unsafe and have no limits and no safe word.
But you're also totally right. You're totally right that like she would have seen that like, oh, these other people who are really competent in the BDSM world are with this guy. So like
and
maybe
have been
like
for years. Maybe there's something.
Maybe I shouldn't be as worried. Like I can totally see the mind game of like,
yeah,
well,
and she's like brand new to this whole experience. So for her, she's like, well, maybe that's normal, you know?
maybe
How
this
would
is how
she
it
know?
works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh. Oh
It's
my
really,
God.
really dangerous that he's like giving this false reality to people of like
Oh
what
my God.
BDSM really is not. So later, Gabby said there was no consent. There was no saying no. This man is trained in jujitsu. He's an MMA fighter. What am I going to
Oh,
do against him? And he beat her relentlessly until she fled for her own safety. But somehow, Asan convinced Gabby to give him another chance, which makes me think he must have some narcissistic qualities about him to be able to charm these people right back into his life. You know what I mean? Like she fled and he somehow talked her into coming back for another chance.
I mean, he's had some narcissistic tendencies from the beginning.
Yes.
But no,
I guess I mean he
he's
must be more charming than I'm picturing him to be because
he's got something
he's
manipulative
got
going.
something that he's drawing people back with, you know. And so she gave him another chance, but the abuse continued until she filed a police report against him. The police told her there wasn't really a case because it all happened in the context of BDSM, and her report went nowhere.
I want to lose
What a
my
surprise. I know. Meanwhile, Tracy, thankfully, this is Heather's mom, had made some headway in her daughter's case. Asan was going to be charged with violating the protective order Heather had against him before her death, so at least something is moving. His lawyer was also being investigated, remember, because I said she was coaching Heather to help her own client, which was like a big no-no. And meanwhile, Asan moved on to another woman he met on a dating app named Stephanie Chow. Asan had moved. He moved to Tucson, Arizona, and immediately jumped right back into his old bullshit. Asan subjected her to the same violence he used on the other women in his life until Stephanie knew she was in grave danger. One day, a domestic violence call came into the Tucson police. The responding officer arrived to find Stephanie sprinting at full speed down a sidewalk with Asan in hot pursuit. Terrifying. Asan tackled Stephanie to the ground right in front of the police cruiser and started attacking her until the officer forced him back at gunpoint. One of Asan's and Stephanie's neighbors told police that Asan had been harassing them relentlessly. He had even broken one of their windows and smeared it with his own feces.
Oh, we have entered into a whole new territory now.
What the fuck is he doing?
Oh my God, that's a full... He is not with us.
He is not well. There was also a national warrant out ordering his extradition to Minnesota for missing a court date, so authorities were supposed to escort him to Minnesota, but instead a judge let him out on a bond. And fun fact,
Christine.
Nobody contacted Stephanie to warn her that he was coming back to their home.
Christine. Dude, like, it's I don't even know what to...
There's no words, you know. So Asan waltzed through the front door, and Stephanie was sure he would kill her, but thank God he didn't. Thank God he didn't. But it still seemed like Asan's reign of terror would never end. Like he was just getting away with it left and right. Again and again, the women who were reporting him were dismissed and accused of consenting to their abuse and probably getting worse abuse, like you said, as a punishment for reporting him.
Yeah.
So finally, Asan went back to Minnesota, where he stood in court on charges of violating Heather's protective order against him, and he had also been convicted of violating a protective order Bella had against him. Asan's attorney argued that Asan loved Heather and that she and the other women consented to everything he did. But Bella spoke up and said, nope, wasn't consensual at all.
Good.
The judge,
Good girl.
good job. I mean, that must have been very hard to say in a setting like that.
Oh my God, I'm so proud of her.
Me too. The judge ultimately sentenced Hassan to the maximum penalty for this crime, which was only 90 days in jail. But for Tracy, this was the first moment of justice she had actually achieved for her daughter. So she walked out of the courtroom with her hands raised in celebration. But upon Hassan's release within 90 days, he went right back to his old habits, of course, because they always do. He went to Florida to stay with Holly.
Oh my God.
I know. In September, Holly's friends called the police and sent them to her apartment where Hassan was holding Holly captive.
Mm-hmm.
Holly had tried to break up with Hassan, and he choked her until she was unconscious, took her phone, and held her against her will for 36 hours, subjecting her to torture.
Torture?
Mm-hmm. This is a feat of genius. Holly finally used her Apple Watch to message a friend who called the police.
I'm so fucking proud of her, too.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Thank God. So Hassan was charged with assault, battery, and a first-degree felony for kidnapping that could mean up to life in prison. But of course, again, Hassan and his asshole attorney argued that this was all consensual and was all just part of BDSM. But Holly had spent 2 months in inpatient psychiatric care recovering from the trauma of this ordeal. And that pretty much showed like this was not consensual, right?
Right.
Years earlier, Holly really had loved and trusted Hassan, and she had truly believed that he was innocent of any wrongdoing in Heather's death. And now she says she knows he is capable of very real violence. She said, quote, "I really feel like the only people that know what happened are him and Heather, and obviously Heather can't speak for herself anymore." Mm-hmm. So ultimately, 6 women have accused Hassan of abuse across 4 states. 4 women have filed protective orders against him, and he has violated 2. As of the story published in June of this year, so June 2023, covering this extensive case, charges were still pending against Hassan in Arizona for assault and in Florida for kidnapping. The Minnesota Supreme Court also enacted a 60-day suspension on Hassan's lawyer's law license and put her on a 2-year probation for her involvement in having Heather lift her protective order against Hassan after he had already violated it.
No. They should be disbarred. Disbarred.
She should be disbarred. So Bella divorced Hassan, thankfully, and she made plans to go back to school and finish her degree. She and Morgan actually launched a website called What Happened to Heather, where they detail the abuse that Hassan subjected all of them to. And to women in the BDSM community, this story is basically the stuff of nightmares. Like it's a worst possible case scenario that somebody that you feel like is a safe person to be with is violating your trust, violating your safe word.
Especially when this is your place to reclaim your sexuality from assault a lot of times.
Yes.
I mean, this is supposed to be exactly where you don't have to worry about that.
The opposite is what's supposed to be, literally, yes. You're supposed to be recovering, from any you're supposed to feel like you're in control and in charge of your body, and it's almost like he's utilizing that against them.
Think of the violation not only of trust with a partner, but now any partner ever, first of all.
Right.
And you have now probably been so traumatized that you have now lost a lot of relationships because you don't want to be in that community anymore. So
it must be hard to re-enter that and trust people that you don't know very well.
Yeah, ever. I mean, it's not just a singular violation. It takes away a whole community. And oh my God.
I imagine it would be hard to feel safe again in that community just because of this one person.
And that's the downside, I guess, to like whatever, kink culture is or whatever BDSM specifically could be, is that there are still manipulative people out there who can take advantage of the fact that a lot of people don't understand it.
Yes.
And so you can, he literally just said, "Oh no, that's not BDSM," and got away with it like a million times.
He's literally in hiding in plain sight,
totally.
Just taking advantage of a community and making it about something that's not what it's really for. And it's very scary that people can hide like that and then get away with it.
just knowing that he can work off of other people's ignorance to
biases. Yes, exactly.
Oof.
So, yeah, like I said, this, of course, is the stuff of nightmares to women in the BDSM community or people in general in the BDSM community, but it's also, unfortunately, nothing new. Women who survive abuse and who are also open about their sexuality are often dismissed as having consented to that abuse. And that really is a tragic and disturbing reality. Additionally, abuse survivors and victims continue to be blamed for their own suffering. It must just be such a slap in the face and be basically re-traumatizing you, if people don't take you seriously if you come to someone who's supposed to protect you, whether it's your loved ones, the police, whoever.
The amount of times people are saying, well, you asked for it or you wanted it or, well, what did you expect?
Right.
And then on top of it, you've just got the general ignorant people to domestic violence who are like, well, why didn't you leave? And it's like, I mean, every level of it, you can't just have autonomy or feel.
Feels like you're just like knocking on a glass wall and people are just like, sorry, nothing we can do. It's a scary, scary thought. Well, Morgan and Bella, who are now close friends and roommates, believe it or not, and who both have a son, thank God, out of their lives, launched a nonprofit called Heather House, which assists survivors of domestic violence. And
that's awesome.
I think that's really special that, they were able to reclaim, something special and make something great out of it. I'm just that's the silver lining, I suppose. And that's the story.
That sucked, Christine. That sucked.
Horrible.
Wow. I don't know where to go from there.
I'll end us here. If you are experiencing any domestic violence or know someone who is, there are places that can help. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. They also have English, Spanish, and 200 plus interpretation services available. You can also chat with them and you can send an SMS. You can text START to 88788. And we love you and you got this.
A general reminder to people too that the universal hand signal for I need help or I'm in a domestic violent situation, please help me. Whether you're on Zoom or you're in front of people, is to have your palm out if you can see the screen on YouTube. But if not, stick your hand out, put your thumb into your palm, and then close your fingers over your thumb. And that means help me. So if you ever see someone doing that, please, you see something, say something.
Didn't that happen? Wasn't there someone who did that in a car window and got
I think
rescued?
So, yeah. So just a reminder that if you see someone close their fingers over their thumb, they might be asking for help. So
yeah, it is called the Violence at Home Signal for Help.
Yes.
So it's almost like you're getting it looks almost like you're getting trapped, like you're being held against your will is almost the interpretation. Yeah. So there you go.
Well, if we can learn from anything, it's to educate ourselves more on BDSM and be there for people and stop asking people why they don't leave when there's things going on. Well, I don't know how Halloween themed that was, but it was certainly scary. So
certainly was
job.
Very frightening. Yeah, of all things. But I promise next episode will be Halloweeny in theme.
Cool. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. We're going to go do our after hours.
I have a topic. Is that okay? I've already prepared a little true crime quiz for you.
Oh, Christine loves a quiz. All right.
I love a quiz.
We're going to go keep hanging out. If you want to listen, go join Patreon and we'll see you over there. And
that's
why
we
drink.